What is up? Welcome to another episode of the West Coast Offensive. I am your host, Kyle Dewhurst, and this week we got a lot to talk about. The NBA Finals have come to a close. We'll talk all about that, and of course, we're continuing our NFL division preview. This week, you'll see myself talk about the NFC North, dive into each of those teams and where I think those teams will end up in the rankings. And we'll talk Aaron Rodgers because that is the linchpin of who will win that division if he is with the Packers. And I'll talk about that later in the show. That'll be at the end of this. But first, let's talk about the NBA Finals. All right, this week we got the NBA Finals. It came to a close Tuesday night, of course, in Milwaukee. The Bucks win it in their hometown to win their first NBA Finals since 72, something like that. It's 71. I just saw it right here on my side monitor. 71, so long time coming, 50 years. And they did it. They did it all behind Giannis, and that's what I want to talk about. He was named Finals MVP, and why wouldn't he? You know, when you look at his scores over the course of the series, his stats, his records that he, the company that he joined during this finals series, the series of the finals, just phenomenal. Also, the series as a whole was good. The first two games in Phoenix. All right, Phoenix won those pretty well, but it was still competitive up until the fourth quarter, really. And same thing with the rest of the games. Like, a lot of times, you know, it was neck and neck, and then all of a sudden, Milwaukee pulled away in the fourth quarter, like with 3 to 2 minutes left. Phoenix just makes mistakes because they're down a little. They're down 5, 6, 7 points. They need to do something. They couldn't get it done. There's so many times Chris Paul or Devin Booker just were trying so hard to get something done, but the defense of the Bucks just was not letting it happen. So it's just a phenomenal series. Really enjoyed it. It's nice to have two new teams in the finals instead of the same cast of characters, you know. I mean, how many years do we get LeBron or Steph? I think it's the first time in the decade that we have had a finals that wasn't LeBron or Steph. They didn't have one of those players in. So that's just crazy to me. And it is exciting to see these two teams. I mean, like I was the preview before, you know, Crowder on the Suns was the only guy who's been to the finals. No one else has been on either squad. This is all their first time in the finals. And I really do think it showed in a lot of ways. Some of the mistakes, but a lot of the competitiveness of the play and the level of play was definitely, I want to attribute to the fact that a lot of these guys haven't been there before and they were hungry to get it. Ultimately, Milwaukee wins with a final score in Game 6 of 105-98. Phoenix was holding on, but just couldn't stop Giannis. And this is something that, you know, in Game 3, I think I tweeted out saying, like, all right, you know, Giannis can win this series, but can he do this every single night for the rest of the series? He did from that point on. He took the team on his back and won every single game. And it's crazy even remembering before Game 1, he had that injury where he missed 2 games, a game or two, I forget. With that hyperextended knee, it looked like he might be out forever. And a lot of people were talking about, is he even going to play going into Game 1? Well, he played the whole series, and ultimately he led them to a championship. So in Game 6, 50 points. They scored 105, so he scored almost half of their points. 50 points, 16 for 25 on the field goals. And when the biggest moment, all right, the reason probably they won this game is free throw shooting, which is crazy to talk about, right? It's always a question mark with Giannis if he's going to make these free throws. It's been the weakest part of his game, arguably. On Game 6, he went 17 for 19 at the line. Just this guy stepped up. He was not going over the Phoenix for a Game 7. No, he was going to get this win in Milwaukee for Milwaukee, completing what he set out to do. And he said he's not one of those guys to leave, chase a championship. He wanted to do it with the team that took a chance on him. one of those loyal guys, and he did it. And we saw that what Milwaukee did worked. Remember, they traded a ton of first-round draft picks for Drew Holiday, and clearly that was we got to win a championship now, and it paid off. They did it in a huge part. Another huge reason they won right behind Giannis is Holiday's play, not just offensively, but defensively. I mean, you look at what he did to Booker and Chris Paul whenever he was guarding them. They really couldn't get anything done on him. Sure, Booker made some crazy shots over Holiday, but they were crazy hard shots that he somehow made, and that's just how good of a player Booker is. But he also wasn't able to get a lot going. The amount of turnovers that Holiday caused throughout this whole series was just a crazy amount. And it's that defense on Booker that really slowed Phoenix down and elevated Milwaukee over. I think it's both Middleton and Holiday's defense really, 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 I think, is why Milwaukee ended up winning this series, and why after game 4, I was like, I don't think Phoenix will get this. After game 4, we knew what they needed to do was slow down Giannis and get their offense going. They couldn't do that in 5 and 6. Ultimately, they both went to Milwaukee. And again, it's just impressive the level of defense that Milwaukee showed up with, especially coming out of game 1 and 2, where Phoenix looked a lot better. They looked good. But, hey, Budenholzer and that team figured it out and got the win. So a couple other stat lines going in for you. Overall on the Suns, Chris Paul led the team in points with 26, Booker right behind him with 19. But that was pretty much it in that game 6, and they really looked flat. And ultimately now we have Giannis going up as the MVP, as a championship. So congrats to Milwaukee. Exciting to see. This series made me a fan of Milwaukee overall, and made me a fan, more so a fan of Giannis. That's what I meant to say, is that this series made me a fan of Giannis as a person. Just, going back and realizing and kind of having a lot of these stories and posts and social media posts from Giannis, or interviews from Giannis when he was younger, first in the league. Just, he set out to do what he wanted to, and he accomplished what he set out to do, was win a championship with the team he was drafted to, bring a championship to Milwaukee, and he did it. And it's so cool to see that. I love those stories. That's why, I'm really hoping Dame can figure it out in Portland. I don't think so. I don't see Portland doing what they need to do to keep Dame. Pretty sure he's going to get out this summer. It looks like it's pointing to that, unless Portland makes a big move, but I don't know if they're going to. I don't know what they can do. But it worked for Milwaukee, and you saw how these smaller market teams can make it work. You get a star, build around the star, do everything you can to do what that star player needs to have their game elevated, and to help elevate other people's games. You got to bring in the players that fit that need and that mold, and you can win a championship. It worked in Milwaukee. We'll see if other teams can do it, but I think this is something special, and we won't see it really often anymore, because it's hard to do, and they did it all behind Giannis. Just loved it. I mean, shout out to just across the board, these players from Milwaukee just were phenomenal across the series. Middleton, I haven't talked much about Middleton because it's the top 3 players for me right now with Milwaukee. Is obviously Giannis, reason they won this series. Drew Holiday with his defense on across the Phoenix's lineup right there, but highlighted on Booker and Chris Paul, really slowed him down, and even Middleton added in. Those 3 players right there really came together. Middleton's been there the whole time. Giannis, they finally did it together and got a championship. Holiday was that missing piece, and they achieved it. They did it. So exciting stuff there. Now looking at Phoenix, can they run it back? I do believe they can. They got to get bigger, though, because the physicality of the Bucks really slowed down Phoenix. Phoenix was a little too small. They didn't have a guy. When Ayton was in, he was good. He kind of slowed Giannis down a little bit, but Giannis just couldn't be slowed down, honestly. Good luck trying to slow him down. But Ayton just kept picking up fouls too many times, and then you had to switch him out, and Crowder was a little too small. Kaminsky wasn't just the guy, so they just were a little too small, I think, to get over the size difference going up against Milwaukee. So I think that's something they need to do. They need to address their size on the interior. I They got the stuff. Chris Paul disappeared in game 3 and 4, 5 as well. Also kind of disappeared in game 6 at times. He scored the most points for Phoenix, but he just looked a little different. Didn't look like that player. So overall, there's concerns there. He's not retiring. I don't think they need to get rid of him. I think he can be brought back, and I think they still could run it back. But they just big thing, size and speed. Size in the interior. That's something they lacked, and Ayton can get there. I really do like DeAndre Ayton. He's a younger guy, so he could be the guy. He showed flashes of it, but especially in Game 6, he really struggled scoring in the paint, where the whole rest of the series he was doing great with that. Really shone. He's really a bright spot for Phoenix in this series, except in Game 6, unfortunately. So, hey, it's a young team overall. Chris Paul being the oldest guy, but overall, it's a young team. The fact that they got to the finals, I don't think this is the last time they'll be pushing for a final spot, as long as that team can build properly around Booker going forward, and filling in where they need to on the interior. So shout out to Monty Williams. I love, wished he could have got this win, but I loved what he did. He went in and congratulated the Bucks locker room, talked to Giannis after giving his post-game talk, which was kind of emotional, if you know everything he's been dealing with off the court the past couple years. So, shout out to him for doing that. I mean, you got to respect it, right? I mean, they're both competitors, So, shout out to that. Excited to see what these moves in the offseason will bring. But right now, it's time to celebrate for the Milwaukee Bucks as the NBA champions. All right, let's look to the NFL now. Before we do our NFC North division in review and predictions, let's talk about some other news in the NFL. NFL announced that COVID-19 outbreaks among unvaccinated players could lead to forfeited games. Now, this is an article broken down by Kevin Seifert from ESPN. I'm going to read a little bit of it. The NFL has added an additional COVID-19 vaccination incentive for players, threatening forfeits and the loss of game checks if an outbreak among unvaccinated players causes an unresolvable disruption in the regular season schedule. Once again, the league has encouraged vaccination for players, but has not required it per an agreement with the NFL Players Association. Now, that's just a small snippet of it, but more than... Roger Goodell says more than 75% of NFL players were at least partially vaccinated, and more than half of the league's teams have player vaccination rates above 80%. So more than half of the league is about 80%. Again, not everyone is getting the vaccine, and this is something we're seeing in the U.S. As a whole. A lot of people aren't getting it. What I think is interesting is the fact that the NFL is not requiring it, but they will say that if games get postponed, if games and stuff like that, if that is because of players not being vaccinated and having COVID outbreaks within that team, in that organization, in that locker room, potentially it's an automatic forfeit for that team. Potentially you're losing game checks as well. So it as an incentive to get vaccinated, because here's the thing, NFL can't mandate people get vaccinated, even though science supports getting vaccinated. So this is a way for them to kind of push that forward. But we've already had some players come out and speak against it. Specifically, DeAndre Hopkins came out and said, well, looks like I don't know if I'm going to play in this NFL. This puts a question mark on my career if they really are going to penalize me for doing something I don't want to do. For not doing something, he does not want to get vaccinated. End of the day, he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to get that in his body, per his own statement. And he's questioning now whether his career in the NFL will continue. So it's going to be interesting to see if other players, other star players, such like a player like DeAndre Hopkins, arguably the best receiver in the NFL, definitely one of the best, but arguably the best. If more players of this caliber come out and say like, hey, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm not getting this vaccinated. What are you going to do to me? So we'll see if more players come out. Just something interesting to note going into the offseason. A while ago, the Raiders talked about, I think it was an interview with Derek Carr on some podcast or some show. He talked about, it could also have been just a regular report coming out of camps. One guy saying from the Raiders saying that there's a competitive advantage to having access to everything. So we'll see as training camps and perhaps even the regular season come down, like the effects of this. What are they going to be? Will we see games be forfeited and not even played? Will we see people lose out on game checks because of their unwillingness to get vaccinated? So it's going to be interesting to see. We'll see if what the NFL does and what kind of backlash this causes. I believe this was just put up today. They announced it, so it's pretty new. So we'll see the fallout from this decision as it comes. All right, well, now let's head over to another segment where I'm going to dive into the NFC North. We're going to do our division predictions for the upcoming football season. We are almost done with July. Last month without football. We'll get football starting in August. So super excited as we lead up to that. I'll be predicting the rest of the divisions. Next week will be the AFC East, but I'll talk about that later. I'll see you after this segment. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another segment on the West Coast Offensive. We are going to be looking at the NFC North. That's right, all four of those teams, and preview what their offseason was like, their draft, any free agent moves that I think help them, or the inverse, and ultimately give predictions on each and every game of the season for the teams to get their overall predictions and overall standings within that said division, this one being the NFC North. So without further ado, let's get right to it and move on to talk about, it pains me to say, but the worst team in the division is going to be, we're going to be talking about the Detroit Lions, because unfortunately, as much as I like Dan Campbell, biting off kneecaps, I just, they lost a lot this year. And this schedule is not easy. And we're going to talk about this schedule because this is a schedule, ladies and gentlemen. This is a schedule that I don't think, if you're a Detroit fan, losing Stafford, rightfully so, I don't think you wanted to keep him. I think you needed a breath of fresh air there in Detroit. But you lost Stafford, you lost Galladay, you lost a lot of receivers, a lot of offensive talent. You have a new head coach. You technically have a new owner who's taking over that side of stuff. So overall, a lot of news happening in Detroit, and that is exciting overall. However, when you look at the beginning of this schedule, you got to be patient with this team. You got to be patient with the team and the coach to see what they could do, because ultimately this is a schedule. So let's jump to it. First, though, let me actually pull up some of the notes I wanted to talk about the team as a whole, because there's a lot of cool things happening, I think, with Detroit. They traded for Goff. So they traded Matthew Stafford, their longtime quarterback, for Jared Goff from the Rams. Big trade went down. We talked about it already. I don't think this is going to be great for Goff long term. However, if you're looking at Detroit, they did solidify that offensive line. They got Penny Sewell in the draft, who could go down as the best player in this draft to play, right? I think that's a huge move for them, and it can help. They also they also have some pretty good, solid offensive line help or players as well. So if this team, they also drafted DeAndre Swift last season as well, and they brought in Jamal Williams from the Packers as well. Now, if they go running back by committee, which I feel like they're going to, Swift, rookie last year, had a disappointing season, not the best, not what you want out of a draft pick, obviously. So I expect both of them. I expect Swift to take a step forward, especially behind this a little bit of a retooled offensive line with Sewell jumping in there now. And with Jamal Williams coming in, who was always a situational back, so that could help relieve Swift and really let that running game develop behind those two backs there, and that's going to help Goff. Remember when Goff was great? It was in the moment where he had Gurley, he could rely on Gurley, and that was what helped that team and ultimately what got him to the Super Bowl. I don't think it was on the arm of Jared Goff. You got there almost in spite of his arm, right? Almost. Just almost. I don't want to knock him down that much, but I think having a running game is going to help. And when you look at the coach of Dan Campbell, that attitude, that bite the kneecap. He said he's going to bite kneecaps. This is a guy who's going to set a culture, and honestly, I think this could work for Detroit. It's why I was hot on him. Not hot on him, but why I think we don't throw Detroit out yet. Don't put them down in the NFC North bunker, in the NFC bunker, and just wait until next year to deal with them. No, keep your eyes on them. They could be good, okay? And another thing is that when we look at their defense now, those are the pros. I think that coach can really change the culture, and you're either going to come out, Detroit Lions fans, organization, you're either going to come out of the Dan Campbell era saying, thank you. Thanks for resetting us. Thank you for making us competitive again. Now we're going to get a coach. Now we're going to get a guy who can be great. Or there's a chance that this guy can lead them back. Because here's the thing. The NFC North, Packers are on their way down. I don't care what you say. Rodgers is clearly on his way out, and we'll talk fully about that when we get there. But obviously, Rodgers is on the way out. He's old as well. He's up there in age. It's not like he's in his prime and he has 12 more years, So that's going down. Minnesota is on the bubble every year of collapsing and going back into the bunker or being great into the playoffs, right? So they're flowing right now. Chicago, great defense. They got a new quarterback. But again, in theory, if you look at these top teams, the division could be wide open in the next season or two. If Dan Campbell can hit and get this team to rally behind him and at least be competitive this season, at least look competitive, I don't know. Lions could be dangerous going forward. But a lot has to happen because when I look at this roster, there's a lot of question marks. We already talked about Goff. I don't think Goff, especially, it's an enclosed building, but they're up in the cold weather. He's going up against, in cold weather games, Chicago and Green Bay. We'll see how he does. I think he's going to really need that running game, so we'll see how that goes. But you have DeAndre Swift, second-year guy, didn't do a lot behind Jamal Williams, who was never a first or a lead back. So we'll see how that running back room shifts out. But on the receiver end, you got Tyrell Williams, who was on the Raiders past couple years. Never saw the field. He was always injured. He was with the Chargers as well. But again, he hasn't really been the same player because he's dealing with some injury stuff. So we'll see if he can come back because he could be a good guy for Goff to have there if he can get back to what he was pre-injury. The last couple of seasons. You have Brashad Perryman, Quintus Cephas. Those are their listed starting wide receivers. What is that? You drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown out of USC this year, so he could come out and be a good receiver for you. But overall, you just don't lack. They lack in that position. They lack with the receivers, and that makes me worry about Goff, who historically has not been the best passer, who has struggled to make some throws, and really needs some talent around him to kind of uplift that passing game. So we'll see. Those are my question marks. Receiver and defense. Defense as well. I just have question marks. Jeff Okudah, their first round pick last year, did not play up to par. So we'll see if a second year post-COVID, now getting a full year under him, full training camp, we'll see what that does. But those are the question marks I have, is the defense and the offense production. Like, what are they actually going to be able to do? I do think they're going to be competitive. I really do, but we'll see how the wins rack up. So let's actually move to that right now. Let's talk about the schedule. You've seen the schedule. It's been up. You can go through it. You probably looked at it. You probably have seen, if you're watching the video, that is, you probably have seen this schedule, and wow, that opening stretch till the bye week, their bye week's week 9, is rough. They got San Francisco. Let's just start doing the win and losses. So I'm gonna do the games that I know are going to be wins or losses. We'll leave the 50-50 games, and then we'll split that, and that'll be our average just to kind of see where this team is going to go. So let's start off. Right up off the bat, you got San Francisco going over, or you're at home against San Francisco, sorry. This is going to be a tough matchup. San Fran, a year removed from a Super Bowl. Last season, they had a ton of injuries. Didn't make the playoffs. they got everyone back. As long as they can stay healthy, I think they're going to be the same team that we saw, potentially even better in some cases. So right away, I'm going to chalk this up as a loss for Detroit. I just don't know how you can go. I just don't see week one. Maybe, it's week one. Maybe you can shock the world, much like the Washington football team did last year when they won their first game last season. But we'll see. But overall, I'm going to chalk this up as a loss. And again, I think for all these teams, here, everybody, Aaron Rodgers talk. For all these teams, Aaron Rodgers is playing. When we talk about Green Bay, we'll talk about the alternate reality where he isn't there, which I think is more, I don't know, we'll talk about it. But for right now, we're assuming that Rodgers is in Green Bay playing for them. So I'm going to have both lost. I mean, I don't see this team getting one win out of them. So first off, week 2, you're going to lose against Green Bay. Then you have to go back home and play Baltimore. I don't think Baltimore is going to be as good this year. I think they're going to be third behind Cleveland and Pittsburgh, barely behind Pittsburgh. They could flip with Pittsburgh, but I do think Baltimore will get this win again. I just have too many question marks about the offense, and the Ravens can run that defense dry behind Lamar Jackson and everyone. So right off the bat, I have the Lions going 0-3 so far, and then another stretch of division opponents with Chicago and Minnesota. I have them splitting with Chicago. I'll give them the early win here. I'll give them the early win against Chicago. But again, I have them splitting the series, so no matter what, they're going to lose down here. They're going to lose in week 12 against Chicago. So starting first 4 weeks, you're 1-3. I think you're happy. But again, you got Minnesota, and Minnesota's offense can be very scary if it's clicking on all cylinders, and it will eat that defense up. I think they're going to split the series with Minnesota as well, but I'm going to have them lose this first game in week 5, just because, you know what? That offense is so good, and I don't know what we're going to get out of Detroit. But Detroit has played historically, at least last year, they've been competitive in these games against division opponents outside of the Packers. But we'll leave it there. So out of week 5, we got 1-4 for the Lions. Cincinnati, behind Joe Burrow, you brought in Jamar Chase. You brought in some other offensive line help as well. I do think we're going to see Burrow kind of take more command of this offense and be a little more comfortable in the pocket. So again, I'm chalking that bet as a loss as well. At Los Angeles to face the Rams, I think the Rams are going to be dangerous this year. The Rams are going to be dangerous this year. They got Stafford. Stafford's first time out of Detroit. He wants to make an impact. He wants to make a push for at least the playoffs. Get him in the playoffs. That's all he wants as well. Obviously Super Bowl, but man, that poor guy hasn't tasted success in such a long time with Detroit. So I'm going to have Los Angeles winning that game. And then in Philadelphia, I'm going to have them pulling out the win here in Philly before the bye week here. The Lions will eke out that win. A lot of question marks around Philadelphia and what they will actually be, but I'll have them eke out that win there. So going into the bye week, I have them at 2-6, and honestly, I think this is you're happy with this right now. If you're Detroit, you're happy knowing where you're at as a franchise, as an organization. You're happy being 2-6 going into this bye week. That's a tough schedule. Those first 5 games, week 1 through 5, tough. San Fran, Green Bay, Baltimore, Chicago, Minnesota. 3 division games, 3 playoff teams. Good luck. Good luck, Detroit. Just get out of there with a win, honestly. All right, moving on after the bye week in week 9, going into week 10, you have Pittsburgh. You're going to Pittsburgh. Again, I just... Now I'm going to have to give him a loss here. I almost gave him a win here. Now, ultimately, I think Pittsburgh, unless we'll see how Big Ben does. I think I do have some question marks about his level of play, but overall, I just think Pittsburgh's going to be a better coach team. Coming out of the bye, maybe they can eke out the win. It might be closer. I think this Pittsburgh game will be closer than you think. And you know what? This is going to be my first 50-50 game. This is going to be my first 50-50 game for the Detroit Lions. All right, moving on to Cleveland. You're going at Cleveland. Not even going to lie. Cleveland's going to be good this year. You better watch out. Cleveland's good. All right, now we go down to Denver. Now, Denver has a really good defense. Okay, don't lie about it. Denver has a good defense. You're in Mile High. That's also a thing as well. Potentially, it's December. It's going to be cold weather. Goff. I was going to do 50-50, but I'm going to give it, if they can get the running back game, this might be another 50-50 game right here. I'm going to mark this as another 50-50 game that they could win. So we'll see what that does there. Arizona, this NFC West is so good, and I just can't imagine Detroit upsetting Arizona at this point in the season, aiming for a playoff berth. So Arizona, sorry, you got a loss there. Detroit again in week 15. Week 16, you're at Seattle, or at Atlanta, pardon me. I'm going to give Detroit a win here in Atlanta. Atlanta is a lot of question marks. I know they still got, they lost Julio. They got Matt Ryan. I just don't see them. I can see Detroit pulling out this win late in the season here. Seattle, you know what? Lions, their defense is an issue, and I don't know what their defensive line play is going to be. I don't think it's going to be phenomenal. In Seattle, if you can get Russell Wilson out of the pocket, knock him around a bit, you could probably win that game, as Seattle can't protect him. We'll see this season if they fix it, but I don't think they did enough. So, but given, lack of defensive line help in Detroit, I'm going to mark this off as a loss as well. And then you go into Green Bay at home to finish off the season in this extended season. Remember, I have a Week 18 regular season game now. That's going to be a loss too, so sorry. So overall, I got them 4-11 with two 50-50 games. So, I got them as an average of 5-12. Okay, 5-12 is the average here. So I'm going to mark it off as 5-12 for the Detroit Lions here. A tough schedule, honestly. When you think about where Detroit is this season, new coach, new quarterback, new system, partly new ownership, same family, but new person running it. Just a lot of new stuff happening. This is a rough schedule, but it is what it is. The NFL is the NFL, and there's a lot of winnable games here. So we'll see. But right now I have them being 5-12 this season. All right, now let's move on to our third team, which is, of course, the Chicago Bears. All right, let's talk Chicago Bears before we dive into their schedule. Now, when we look at the roster, I like the roster. Obviously, the biggest question mark this offseason and going into this season with the Bears is, when will Justin Fields play? Is he sitting the year? Is he going to start week 1? Remember, this is a roster that has Andy Dalton right now listed as their number 1 quarterback, with Justin Fields as number 2 and Nick Foles as well. Honestly, I don't like when teams play rookie quarterbacks too early. We saw it with Burrow, who went down with an injury. We saw it with, I think back to a lot of this stuff is from Raider perspective. Derek Carr, in his rookie season, had a great week 4 performance in the preseason, lighting up in the first quarter against most of the starters of Seattle. And at the time, that was a Legion of Boom. So he got the nod, went 0-10, and now, it is what it is. Sometimes it hurts development. Sometimes it helps development. Sometimes if you're rushing it, you're not going to get the results you want, and ultimately it's going to hurt you in the long run. So I don't know where the Bears are at. We know Nagy is on the hot seat. Whether it's said or not, or felt or not, he's on the hot seat. Let's be real, right? With a defense like this, you got to be better offensively. So we'll see. Honestly, I feel like Dalton is probably going to get the start the first week or two, and then Fields will come in depending on play, or depending on the preseason and in the offseason, what they see out of him. Maybe they're ready to take the dive and get him in and get actual game rep, because at the end of the day, the only way to get experience is actually to play, right? To get into the game and get the flow of the game. So we'll see how that goes on, but my prediction is 1 or 2, maybe 3 weeks of Dalton, then we'll get Fields. But for the Bears, man, look at this defense. Their defense has playmakers at every level, and that's really the big thing. I mean, you got Khalil Mack, obviously, on the edge. Playmaker, right? Playmaker. You still got Hakeem Nicks as well. I just think, you got one playmaker right there on the line with Khalil Mack, and when he keeps going, when he has that energy and effort, he's one of the best in the game. You got Wakon Smith, Raquan Smith on the linebacker position. Again, another playmaker at every level. Great guy, great player. And then in the backfield, you got Eddie Jackson, Giuseppe G Sr. That secondary is pretty solid. I know they've lost some people, but overall, I still think this defense is pretty good. I think that is a pro for this team right now, right? Is this defense. This is the best part of this whole squad. And again, the key here is they have playmakers at every level. So, you can get beat in areas, but you also have players who can secure the win, who can make those plays that you need atop the whole defense. So I think that's a key there. And on the offensive side, there are some good players. I mean, David Montgomery is still there. Allen Robinson came back. Those two players right there can really help this team. And if Dalton takes a step forward with the offense, yeah, maybe this is it, Overall, though, I like the idea of Montgomery, Robinson, and Justin Fields, right? I like them if they can get on the same page and they can all click within this offense, and then the other players they have as well. I think this offense could be there, but my question mark is the quarterback, right? It all comes back to the quarterback and Nagy. We've seen Matt Nagy make some weird choices. You've seen some weird things going on the offensive side of the ball. So ultimately, the cons and my big question mark about this Chicago Bears team is the offense. Is the offense going to produce? Is Fields in? Is he going to go through those really rough rookie walls and make a lot of rookie mistakes? Or is he? We're going to see. I mean, we've seen it. Like, these quarterbacks come out and they are more than ready. We've seen what Herbert has done. However, even as Herbert for the Chargers has played well that last season, they still didn't make the playoffs. So, I think what we're going to get with the Bears is a middle of the pack right now. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, but I think they have more upside with Justin Fields just to start getting that new mentality, that new play style, and that new system. It's not even a new system, but you are going to be doing stuff differently with Fields than you are with Dalton. So let's just start the train here. That's what this season is, and that's what I see out of the Bears. They might be pushing for a playoff spot late in the season. We'll see. Overall, I don't see them making a playoff spot. So those are my things about the Bears right there. Gotta love the defense. We'll see if their line can still keep up. I know they lost some players all over the defense, but overall, I still like the defense. But offense, baby, what is this offense? You've got good playmakers with Robinson and Montgomery. Use them well. And who's your quarterback? Those are the question marks. But let's now look at the schedule here. Decent schedule. I don't think it's too tough. I don't think there's any spot in the schedule that is really rough and difficult for them. But let's go over it now. Week 1, you are heading to Los Angeles, going up against the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday Night Football. The Rams are going to be coming hard. McVay, first-time fans are going to be in the new stadium, going up on Monday night with your new shiny quarterback in Matthew Stafford. The reason you make that trade is because you are winning a Super Bowl. They're going to come out swinging. I'm going to have the Rams win this first game right here against the Chicago Bears. Then Chicago heads home and goes up against the Bengals. I think the Bengals are going to be in a figuring it out period, still behind Burrow, with Jamar Chase back in there. Old teammates teaming up. But overall, I think Cincinnati is still going to be trying to figure it out. So I'm going to have the Chicago Bears pick up a win there. Then you head over to Cleveland, and, man, I like Cleveland. I really do. I'm going to keep saying this. I'm going to have Cleveland get a win over there. Loss for the Chicago Bears. So you're 1-2 heading into week 4, where you have the Detroit Lions. And I did have Detroit splitting this year with the Bears, but I had Chicago getting the win here first. So we'll have Chicago win here, and of course they're gonna lose the next time on. You know what? I didn't even realize it's Thanksgiving. That makes sense. Detroit loves playing on Thanksgiving, right? Anyways, then we go to Las Vegas to face the Las Vegas Raiders, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. And I'm going to give the defense the credit. I'm going to give the defense benefit of the doubt. I couldn't think of that phrase. Benefit of the doubt. We don't know what this defense is going to look like. It's Gus Bradley's defense. A lot of new defensive players brought in, especially on that defensive line, which has been the issue. You got Trayvon Morig back in the backfield. We'll see what his impact is like with Abram. Sorry, now I'm talking about the Raiders, but I'm going to go with loss to the Raiders with the Raiders at home. Then you got Green Bay, chalking that up as a loss at home. You got Tampa Bay. Look, Tampa Bay has lost most of his starters. Apparently, Tom Brady has played most of last season with a torn MCL. In the NFC side, I don't know what team is going to be able to stop Tampa Bay. So we'll see. Maybe I'm looking at San Fran, maybe a team out of the NFC West. We'll see, right? But lost to Tampa. Then we got San Francisco. San Francisco, I'm telling you, again, there's one of my teams that could be the ones to dethrone Tampa Bay on the NFC side. So we're going to chalk up a loss there. And then we have at Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football. I think Pittsburgh can take a step back this season. Depending on who is playing, this is going to be a 50-50 game. Again, 50-50 game. Can go either way here, depending on what Pittsburgh is up to. They could be better this year. They can also take a pretty big slide, depending on all depending on Big Ben, right there at the quarterback position. So that's our first 50-50 game heading into the bye week. So far, they're either going to be what is that? 2-1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2-6. They're either going to be 3-6 or 2-7 heading into the bye week. Next, we have Baltimore. Coming off the bye week, Chicago, I'm going to say your defense can help you get this win over Baltimore. And this is a huge win. I do think this is an upset in this matchup, but I am going to pick Chicago here to defeat Baltimore. Then you got Detroit. Remember, we split the series, so they already got that loss. Then you got Arizona. I like Arizona this season. I like all the NFC West teams. I'm going to chalk this up as a loss. Green Bay again. I think I had them. Yeah, no, I don't think Chicago can split with Aaron Rodgers there. I really don't, especially going to Green Bay there. It's going to be a tough game, though, no matter what. It always is. Minnesota, I'm going to have them split the series with Minnesota, so we'll give them a win here at home, of course. But again, then they're splitting with the Minnesota, so they're going to lose that game. Seattle, I'm going to chalk this up as a 50-50 game. It's late in the season. We've seen what happens to Seattle. They kind of taper off a little bit towards the end of the season. Still probably will be a good team, good playoff team, but I'm going to have that be a 50-50 game. And the New York game, I'm going to have the Chicago Bears win this one. Just what's going on in New York? Joe Judge, I like you. Daniel Jones. We'll talk about them when we get there, but this is so far the schedule I have. I think we have two 50-50 games, so their overall record, if we average out, I have them at 6-11. Remember, we have 17 games this year with the expanded game and expanded regular season. So this is what it is. Here you are, Bears fans. 6-11. Of course, I could see them pulling off the sweep against Detroit, depending on where Detroit is. But overall, yeah, I think we are Chicago. Unless Fields takes a leap such as Herbert and trying to think of other rookie quarterbacks that were really good. I'm just gonna lean on of Herbert here. Burrow also looked very good, but he went down with an injury. Unless we get that level of play out of Fields, I think Chicago's going to take a step back just because of their offense, unfortunately. But again, you have a rookie quarterback, so as long as you look good, I think I'm okay with this outcome. I honestly do. In his first rookie season, I'm okay with this outcome, especially if he is competing and winning games, if he wins a couple games, and if he can at least stay competitive late in the game. So, here it is. This is the Bears' record, 6-11. Now let's look at the second place team in the division, which will be the Minnesota Vikings. All right, Minnesota Vikings. So this is the team that's in kind of a weird spot, right? You're Kirk Cousins, who has performed very well, but also has lost some pretty important games. Then you got just the playoff performances and the losses and almost getting there consistently, but then not actually getting there. So what is this team? This is a team that I feel like at the end of every season, it's all right. It's time to rebuild. This is the strip it down, redo it all, get the coach out, new everything. Let's do it. But they don't, and then they perform pretty well, but they don't get there again. So what does this team need to do? Off the bat, I like their offense. You got Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson in his third season or second season, so we'll see probably a leap from him. And then you bring in Christian Darrisaw to help that offensive line. Overall, I like what this offense can do. And if you get those three players with Kirk Cousins, if you get this offense cooking with all the pieces, that's a dangerous offense right there. We saw it. We see it constantly. We see it in every game. Like, they look good. Their offense can score. Now, of course, this leads you directly to the next thing is your defense. That is the issue for me, is this defense. What is this defense able to do and able to get going consistently? Because it seems like they keep winning big games late. It seems like that's the issue a lot of times. And, honestly, I don't think they did a lot to help this year in the offensive or on the defensive side. Now, of course, they did draft a ton of help. They got Patrick Jones the second out of Pittsburgh. They got Chaz Surratt, linebacker. So, they did address defense, and they also drafted a couple other players later in the draft who we'll see if they turn out to be anything other than depth pieces. But overall, I just don't see any big changes, any big playmakers who came in to change what this defense will be. So my question is still going to remain is, are they going to be able to get pressure? Are they going to be able to cover and prevent big plays? They brought in Patrick Peterson, who can help, but ultimately it's a veteran guy, a little older guy who might have lost a step. He's lost that quickness a little bit. So we'll see what he does. Maybe he helps solidify that back end. Maybe he helps bring it together and equips the other players, the other people around him to perform and make those plays. We'll see. But that's my biggest question mark on the defense. And of course, it's Cousins playing in those big games. You see him on the Monday nights and the Sunday night footballs, Thursday night games. He doesn't show up enough. He doesn't win the games. So that's my question mark. Is this Viking team is gonna go as far as Cousins goes? Now, they did draft a quarterback in the third round, Kellen Mond. Unless Cousins goes down, I don't think we'll see Mr. Mond behind center. But who knows? We might. He is slated as the number 2 quarterback, and I think why wouldn't you have him? I think this is the guy. You hope that this quarterback is the guy once Cousins comes back. At least is serviceable for you. You can win a couple games with him if Cousins goes down, or in the time between when Cousins goes down and you really solidify your next quarterback. We'll see, but that is something, they did draft a quarterback in the third round, I think. So it was in the third round that they drafted him. So we'll see. Again, I really think the offense can do it. The defense is lacking, but if the offense can do enough, I think they can win some games here. The biggest question mark is, can Cousins win the games people don't think he can on those Monday night primetime games, a primetime game in general? And can this defense do something? Give me something. I'm looking at that back end there. But now let's look at the schedule over on this end. You can see I already marked the games against Detroit and Chicago because I had them splitting the series there. So those are the 2 losses and wins I have. But let's start at the top with Cincinnati. Minnesota starts their 2021 season on the road going up against Cincinnati in Cincinnati. I'm going to have them get this win here. I like Burrow. Okay, I like Burrow. I'm excited to see the offense with Jamar Chase in it, but ultimately, I think Cincinnati is still pieces away from being a threat. They will win some games. They will beat teams they're not supposed to, but ultimately, there's just too many pieces in Cincinnati, especially on that defense. But we got Arizona. Then they go to Arizona 2 games in a row to start off the season on the road. Going into Arizona, I have them losing that game against Arizona. Just I like Arizona in Arizona as well. Then you have Seattle going up in Minnesota this time. First home game of the season. I'm going to give the win to Minnesota here. Again, I do like Minnesota's offense, and they do perform very well. So I will give the edge to the offense here, getting the win against Seattle. Then you got Cleveland. Hot on Cleveland. Watch out for them. Something weird to say, right? But I'll have them lose that game. Then you got the win against Detroit, and then you got Carolina. Now, Carolina has Sam Darnold. Remember the trade that sent someone to New Jersey? I think it was just picks because I think ultimately, yeah, I'm remembering. Ultimately, we got a new quarterback in New York with Zach Wilson, but Sam Darnold is in Carolina. I liked what Carolina did last year. I don't know what we are going to get out of Sam Darnold in that Carolina offense. I thought it looked decent with Bridgewater, but they kind of went the opposite direction when they brought Darnold in. I'm hoping Darnold can recover this career in Carolina, but we'll see. So I'm going to give the win before the bye week to Carolina in Carolina. I'm going to give it to the Vikings in Carolina. So, Vikings, you're starting off your season 4-2 heading into the bye week, winning some close games there. Then you get out of the bye week and you get Dallas. This is going to be my first 50-50 game. Dallas just seems like they always play well against Minnesota, against these other NFC, at least Minnesota. That's what I remember. So I'm going to give this a first 50-50 game that can go either way here on Sunday Night Football on Halloween. Then we got Baltimore. I'm going to give this as a loss to Baltimore, or a loss here. I just like what Baltimore's doing a little more, and I trust Baltimore a little more, even though I do think people are overhyping them a little bit this season. Then you go over to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers and Justin Herbert. Man, this is another 50-50 game here. I don't know what we are going to get out of the Chargers. I really don't. Defense-wise, I think the offense will be good. They lost a playmaker or two. But overall, I do like the offense. I just don't know what the defense is going to look like. I know Derwin James should be back for them, but we'll see. I'm going to give the edge to Minnesota here, eking out the win, or this is going to be our first 50-50, sorry. There. Then you got Green Bay. I'm going to have Green Bay get the win here. Minnesota could split the series. So you know what? I'll give them the win at home against Green Bay. I'll give them the win. I think this is the only NFC North team that could beat Green Bay right now. So I'll have Green Bay get the win here. But, of course, splitting it, that means Green Bay is going to win down there. So Green Bay, get the loss here. So Minnesota beats Green Bay week 11. Then we go over to San Francisco, going up against the San Francisco 49ers. And again, I'm hot on the Niners. I think a tough game against Green Bay. I think you're going to come and unfortunately lose that game and go into a slide against Detroit as well. Here, Pittsburgh, I'm going to have Minnesota beating Pittsburgh here. And then we go against the Rams, and I like the Rams. Remember, after Pittsburgh, we have the Chicago Bears. Chalked that up as a loss already. They split the series Monday night. Again, Monday Night Football, too. I don't trust Cousins in prime time. Then you got the Rams. Again, I like what the Rams are doing. They're playing well. They're doing well. So we'll have the Rams win that game. Then you had Green Bay splitting the series, so they lose this one against Green Bay in Green Bay. Again, another Sunday night game. This isn't even... I didn't look at the times fully, but this is shaking out exactly how it probably will. And, of course, then we get the last win of the season against Chicago after splitting the series at home. So far, we have 7-8 record with two 50-50 games. So if we average that out, we're looking at 8-9 for the Minnesota Vikings. A step back for sure. I think this division is competitive. Again, it really just depends on Cousins' play, but I think the defense overall took a step back and just better teams out there. So overall, here we go. 8-9. I think that's what it was. Let me do math real quick. Yeah, it's going to be 8-9, staying below 500. Remember, that extra game in the season really does matter. So there we go. So that's the Minnesota Vikings, 8-9, fighting for a playoff spot. I think the NFC as a whole is kind of weak, so we'll see here. But not expecting a lot out of the Minnesota Vikings either. They're very steady. All right, and now let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. Of course, the question mark here, the big question mark, is are we going to see Blake Bortles play? So Aaron Rodgers, of course, is the big story with Green Bay. We have heard absolutely nothing yet. The June 1st deadline has passed. It's July now, mid-July, almost the end. We're almost to training camps. So what is happening with Aaron Rodgers? And honestly, who knows? You know, he said he didn't want to play if the general manager was still there. They're not going to get rid of the general manager because of one player. So we'll see, you know, we'll see. It is one of those things that who knows, honestly, at this point, if it can happen. If he comes back and plays, would that affect the level of play? We'll see, you know. It's a weird situation, a weird scenario. We don't know what's going to happen. And it really is two possible outcomes, right? Green Bay can push for a Super Bowl title. All they have to do is get past, on the NFC side, get past the Tampa Bay Bucks, some other teams. I mean, really, their biggest contender is the Bucks. So can they get past the Bucks? That's the question mark here. If with Rodgers, yes, your question mark. Without Rodgers, if you're starting Jordan Love, if you're starting Blake Bortles, it's who knows. It's a whole different shift in predictions if he's not playing for the Packers. But we are going to start with assuming he is on the Packers, because if he's not on the Packers, I'll just get this out of the way, because I'm not going to do a whole separate prediction for if he's not there. We'll just leave it as it is. But if he is not there, they're third in the division behind Minnesota and the Bears. Okay, they're behind the Vikings and the Bears, and those two teams are fighting for that number one spot. But without Rodgers there, I don't know what Jordan Love's ability is. We haven't seen him enough, and I don't trust Blake Bortles. So if he's not there, third place in the division, we'll see what they look like overall if that happens. But we're going to assume that Rodgers is there because he's not traded yet, and the team said they're not trading him. So that's the assumption, right? So when we look at the offense, obviously the pro is Aaron Rodgers. They brought back Aaron Jones. They let Williams walk to Detroit. But overall, I think Aaron Jones is the better guy. You got Devontae Adams, arguably one of the best receivers in the league. Would love... So I don't know what I was going to say. But yeah, love that. I mean, this is a team that really is... offensive side, it runs through Rodgers, and Rodgers elevates players. So I like what this offense can do, you know, especially if they can get Aaron Jones running down the stretch. They got him, you know, they're good to go. So we'll see. Offensive side, defensive side, I think there are some question marks. I mean, the Smith bros are good. You know, we're talking about Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith there. Great players. I think sometimes their run defense struggles a little bit. So when we get into the winter months with the teams that go a little more run heavy against them, they struggle a little bit. But again, Rodgers and the offense can keep them in games enough for the defense to make a play when they have to. And that's what I really think is the reason why they have been so good so consistently as a team, is because their defense, even if it's not the best defense, they'll make plays when they need to. They'll make plays every now and then, and that's all you got to do is just don't bleed too much and make a play when you have to. Get the ball back, get that turnover when you need to, make a stop when you need to, once or twice a game, keep the offense in it. So overall, I do like the team. It's just the big question mark is Rodgers, right? And honestly, that's it. I do like the drafting of Eric Stokes in the first round. The farther away you get from it, the more you look at the team, you're like, okay, you know what? Their secondary has been an issue. They've lost a couple games because of their secondary. So going out and drafting a guy who can help that, who can help the defense not, let up scores and end up losing games because of that, I'm on board with it. Is Rodgers happy about it? No, but we're tired of talking about Rodgers. So yeah, I like the pick of Stokes. I think that's going to help the defense, especially if he develops into a serviceable, even just a good overall cornerback. I think he's going to be that's all you need out of him. Of course, you want more, and I think he could be that guy. He could be more, but at least in this season, you want him to be able to play. This season, you want to get him out there and be able to play and hold his own against these receivers in the league. Boom, you're good to go. So, honestly, it's just the defense is an issue to me. Looking at it, is can they continue what they were doing, is getting the stops when they need to. I would like to see them take over games a little more instead of relying on the offense, because on the offensive side, you hope for Rodgers, but you don't know. So there's that. So let's look at the schedule now, and let's talk about that. So remember, we got schedule here. Open it up against New Orleans in New Orleans. This dome is going to be rocking week 1. Of course, though, the Saints do not have Drew Brees, okay? And Drew Brees, I mean, I don't know what we're going to see out of the Saints. I'm excited, but I don't know what we're going to get. So I'm going to chalk this up as a win for the Packers in week 1, heading into the Big Easy. Then you got Detroit. Not even going to talk about it. Packers win. Then you get at San Francisco, and this is a matchup. I mean, it's a Sunday night game. This one could be good. This one can be very good, and this is going to be our first 50-50 game for the Packers right here. Either team can get the win out. I'm excited for this one. Okay. Then we have Pittsburgh. I'm going to have Packers get a win here. Going into Cincinnati, chalking up a win here. Going into Chicago. Now this is where, I start to think, all right, can Chicago split the series? And I don't think I had Chicago splitting the series on their schedule, but in these games, it really can depend. I'm going to have the Packers get the win here, okay? And against the Washington football team, this is a tough game. This will be a tough game. Washington's defense behind Chase Young has been really good. And then, of course, I don't love their quarterback, but Fitzpatrick has some of that magic. Got to check the beard and see if there's anything in there, because he can win games, okay? And if this defense can keep him in the game long enough, they could get wins. I'm not going to do a 50-50 game here, because ultimately I like the offense more of the Green Bay Packers, but this game would not surprise me. But I'm going to give it to the Packers here. Then you got Arizona going up against the Packers. And this is where I see a slide starting. I'm going to give the win to Arizona, and they're also going to get the loss to Arizona and to Kansas City here. I'm going to call the Arizona loss an upset, of course. And, of course, Kansas City being there. In Kansas City, yeah, we'll give the win to Kansas City, unfortunately, there. Then we go on to Seattle, and I don't think... Yeah, I'm going to put Seattle. It's going to be a tough game again, but they're at home. I'm going to get them the win to Seattle. Then they got Minnesota. I don't fear Minnesota for them at all. Then we got the Rams, and this is another team that the Rams could... This is another team in the NFC that the Packers need to worry about, okay? They're going to be good this year. I really do think they are, with Stafford as well. I'm excited to see Stafford in an offense and with a team that is better suited to win than what he's had his whole career. And he still was a great quarterback. Okay, he was a great quarterback in Detroit, but the team was lacking and the coaching was lacking. So we'll see in there. This is going to be another 50-50 game that is going to be exciting to watch confused me because I did a check mark on the little list. That's for visual people. Anyway, so heading into the bye, we have two 50-50 games, but overall, I have them at 8-2 with two 50-50 games. So that would put them at 9-3 heading into the bye week. 9-3 heading into the bye week. Gonna have we got Chicago at home Sunday night. I'm gonna give that a win to the Packers at Lambeau, protecting it on a Sunday Night Football. Then you go to Baltimore. Now these AFC North games are going to be tough. And I think heading over to Baltimore, I can see Baltimore getting this win out, honestly. I could. But then you go at home against Cleveland, and I'm going to give the Packers the edge here. And they're going to win out on the rest of the season. So week 16 against Cleveland, I'm going to have the Packers win. Then they go back home, or they stay at home with Minnesota. Yeah, get that win too on Sunday Night Football. Again, don't like Cousins on Sunday night, so we'll leave it that way. And finishing off the season with a win against Detroit. So overall, they were 9-3 at the bye week. They win 4 more games, lose 1. So we're looking at a record of 13-4 for the Green Bay Packers, getting them easily into the playoffs here, all behind Aaron Rodgers. Okay, so this is a schedule all behind Aaron Rodgers. I don't even want to think about what they look like. I mean, you could probably reverse those numbers. If they're 13-4, flip them around, you're probably going to be 4-13 without Aaron Rodgers. That's a little dramatic. Their offense is still good. Their defense is still good. But they're definitely a lower middle of the pack without Rodgers. But with Rodgers, I have him at 13-4 going into the playoffs, securing solidly the number 1 spot in that division, completely owning the NFC North. But that has been our NFC North predictions. All right, so we have Packers making the playoffs and the rest of the teams. Maybe Minnesota can get into the playoffs, but the Bears in 3rd place and the Lions in 4th place are not making the playoffs this year based on my predictions. So we will continue this next week with I think we're going to do the AFC East next week. We're going NES West. We're ending with the West because the West is the best. And that has been another episode of the West Coast Offensive. I am your host, Kyle Dewhurst. I just want to thank you again for watching and listening on your preferred service. Remember, you can catch the show on all podcast services around the globe: Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and a slew of other ones such as Anchor, our host site. If you are on Apple, be sure to subscribe and follow on there and leave a 5-star review, as it helps boost our findability, our searchability. It helps us get more eyes onto the show, so I appreciate everyone who has done that already for us. And it's just good to hear feedback on the show, so I appreciate that as well. Be sure not to miss out on any of the content by following our social media accounts on different platforms. Just search for the West Coast Offensive on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube and Twitter, and you'll find that little bear logo. And make sure you follow, like, or subscribe, whatever that platform is asking you to do for our account, so you don't have to miss out on new content drops and other announcements. Such as on YouTube, you could catch the full video version of the podcast there that releases weekly, as well as some clips if you don't want to catch the full show, or you just want to go back and listen to specific segment, or if maybe you're only interested in the basketball, or maybe you're only interested in the football, we'll break those up for you, and you can go check those out on our YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell to never miss out on that content, and to support the show. It's awesome. Last but not least, if you do wish to support the show in a more monetary sense, you can do so over at buymeacoffee.com/the West Coast Off. Buy Me a Coffee is a platform for creators to be supported by their audience by simply receiving a coffee. You can just, for the price of a cup of coffee, you can support the show and help us continue putting it out and putting it forward. So I appreciate that. Remember, that is buymeacoffee.com/the West Coast Off. Just take out the ensive in offensive, and you got the West Coast off. Whatever. Anyways, this has been another episode. We'll see you next week. Remember, stay kind and be safe.